Hello and welcome back. If you're new to this channel, it focuses on the ins and outs of living abroad in the beautiful country of Poland. Today we are going to talk about money. Let's get started. Now, I know when you're thinking about moving abroad, there are a lot of elements or a lot of issues that you have to think of before you move, and there's a lot of reasons why you move abroad. In this video, I'm going to address money, specifically the affordability, in a bit detail and kind of give you a rundown of my expenses and how I live in Poland, and to kind of give you a frame of reference of if you're teaching English as a second language, you can live a very comfortable life here in Poland. Before we can get deep into this video, I want to apologize. I actually have a cheat sheet with me right here, and you might notice me looking over to the side. It's because I am not good with numbers at all. So I have my cheat sheet here so that I'm able to kind of give you some of the numbers and not forget. So if I'm looking to the side mysteriously, this is what I'm looking at. So first off, when you're thinking about moving to Poland, number one, Poland is part of the EU. However, unlike most EU countries, Poland does not use the euro as its currency. Poland actually uses its own money, and that money is called the zloty. Now, I've pronounced it completely and 100% wrong. So for the rest of the video, instead of saying zloty, I'll just use the abbreviation, the PLN, when I'm talking about the currency that's used here in Poland. Now, currently right now, if you're comparing the PLN to US dollars, 4 PLN is equal to $1 US. And if you're comparing it to euros, it's almost the same, as the euro is historically a bit stronger than the US dollar. So you would have 4.5 PLN is equal to €1. So the euro is a bit stronger, and that's typical in these times where the euro has always been slightly stronger than the dollar. In addition, before we can get down into the breakdown, I kind of have to mention some of the industries that exist in Poland and why you, as an English teacher, you are necessary, and you are something that I kind of can see for the foreseeable future that Poland is going to need ESL teachers to kind of help out with the growing economy. Now, for now, and since I've lived in Poland for the last 4.5 years or so, the major industries have been agriculture, manufacturing, and the mining industry. Now, I live down in the southern part of Poland, and so the mining industry happens here. A lot of the mines are located in this region, and so it's a big industry here. And it's a lot of the students that I work with, or a lot of the clients that I teach English to, work for that industry at some capacity or whatnot. Now, even with the mining industry and all those industries, Poland is growing rapidly in some other sectors, and primarily automotive. There are a lot of automotive factories here in Poland, specifically in this region. And so because of that, a lot of Polish people need to, acquire English and need to acquire communicative English, as these industries are international, and the international language of Europe and most of the world at this time is English. Therefore, as an English teacher or ESL teacher here in Poland, you bring a lot of value, and we are in high demand. Really high demand, and it's grown rapidly since I first moved here. When I moved here, I think it was more like a middle demand, or a lot of people were wanting to speak English so when they go on holiday that they'd be able to communicate. And now I feel that a lot of people are trying to acquire English, at least communicative English, because it's needed for work. I also see a big boom with ESL English, specifically with children. So the future of Poland is to be speaking more English, so that gives Polish people more opportunities, which gives you as a native speaker more opportunities too. So when we look down into the costs, so I'm going to base these costs on where I live. I live in a smaller region of Poland. Obviously in Warsaw or bigger cities, the cost of living is going to be more expensive, and the salaries are going to be a lot bigger. Now, currently right now, the average salary for an ESL teacher in kind of the smaller region that I live in is about about 3,200 PLN up to about 5,000 PLN. And obviously the 3,200 is at the lower spectrum of it. And there has been times where I've made a little bit more than the high end of it. That's just kind of rough average. In Warsaw, it's going to be a lot different. And we can see that in Warsaw, the kind of low point is 5,000 PLN. And at the high point, it's about 7,000 PLN. So obviously there was going to be a little bit different when you're thinking about what city you're going to move in and the income that ESL teachers get. Now, with these salaries, unlike some other countries, you're not going to get, rich, and you're not going to be able to save a lot of money. However, with living in Poland, these salaries are compatible and comparable to some other parts of Europe. I could only compare it to Spain because I'm familiar with the salaries that a lot of my friends that work in Spain and my experience working in Spain in the summers. And the salary is kind of on par, so almost a bit similar. I would say that down in Spain, in Madrid, you're going to make about 1,000 euros, maybe a little over 1,000 euros. And that's about equivalent to what you're going to be making in Warsaw. So, typically the cost of living in Poland is cheaper. So you might get more bang for your buck if you're thinking of just exploring the EU as a whole and you're not settled on just living in Spain or like a big city in Spain. It might be better to move here to Poland, and then you'd be able to kind of travel out on your vacations and like long weekends. So now I'm just going to do the breakdown of like my rent, my utilities, and other expenses that I have. So if you look at rent, my rent is currently 1,700 PLN. My utilities, utilities are quite expensive in Poland. So my utilities is a big chunk. It's in comparison to my rent. My utilities is 600 PLN. Now for internet, we currently have one of the faster connections of internet. But even with that, internet is relatively cheap here in Poland, and internet here is about 50 PLN. I have a contract with my phone, and so I do pay a little bit more than what you would pay for prepaid. However, I get a lot of data and I get unlimited calls here in Poland, and that is 100 PLN per month. Now, if you were to do a grand total of this, my expenses would be about 2,450 PLN per month. However, I don't live alone, I do live with my partner. So therefore you would have to cut those expenses in half. And so therefore per month, if you were to cut it in half, we are each paying about 1,225 PLN per month, which is amazing. It allows us to, one, save lots of money every month. And it also allows us to go on a really good vacation or a few good vacations during the year. Now, if you're coming here single, when you look at the cost, obviously when more people live together, the expenses are reduced because, two people are not going to use like double the electricity per se that one individual is going to use. Now, if you were moving here as a single person, I can say roughly when I was single, when I was living on my own, my living expenses at the time, and that was like 4 years ago, was about 1,300 zlotys a month, or maybe about 1,500 zlotys a month for like utilities and rent. So therefore it's not that much, but if you're moving alone, do kind of bump it up a little bit, because as an individual, you're going to be spending a little bit more money. There's a lot more savings when you have roommates, and if you're living with a partner or a spouse. Besides utilities, another huge expense for us is food costs. So per week, believe it or not, we spend about 200 to 300 PLN per month. And that's just going to the local grocery store. Now, sometimes that price, it does kind of, go up and down, and sometimes it's a bit cheaper, and sometimes it's a bit more. It's according to the week. However, on average, I would say we spend about 180 PLN per month. Now, we do eat out, and eating out in Poland, I'd say it's a bit of a paradox when you think about it. if you go to a lot of the local mom and pop restaurants, they are relatively cheap. And according to what city you're in, you can get a really good sizable meal from 25 to about 40 swatis. And maybe I would say about 50 a swati with a drink, with like a Coca-Cola or a tea or whatnot. However, if you're going to some of the more expensive restaurants, you could spend, up to 100 swatis per person, or even 150 swatis per person if you include like a drink, especially if you include an alcohol beverage. So these expenses, especially when it comes to food, are going to be more based on you and what you purchase. Obviously, if you are shopping at the grocery store, you're going to spend a lot less money. But if you like to eat out a lot, obviously you're going to spend more. So it really depends on you and your individual tastes and what you're consuming. Now, if I do a grand total, kind of based on some of the high points, especially when it comes to food, we spend about 4,500 PLN per month on our expenses. So this is kind of like the average as to what we spend. Now, that does seem like a lot, but again, I don't live alone. I live with my partner. So if I were to cut that in half, so I individually spend about 2,025 PLN per month on expenses, give or take, considering like that would depend on how much I eat out, and that would depend on how much we purchase at the grocery store for that particular week. So that's quite affordable, considering that if we look at the high end of my salary, or the high end of salaries that are possible in this region of Poland, the high end of salary is 5,000 PLN per month. So we're looking at that. It means that you can potentially save about 2,000 swatis a month, which is amazing. Now, I don't always make that high end. However, I can say that my first year that I was living in Poland, when I was making more towards the lower end of the salary, I was able to save about 1,000 swatis, so 1,000 PLN per month for 10 months. So at the end of, my contract for that year, on that specific contract, I was able to save about 10,000 swatis, and that allowed me to have an amazing vacation. I was able to go to Spain, and I was able to do a lot of little different tours, and I was able to like really enjoy my summer. So it is possible to save, but you do have to be frugal in comparison if you're working in some other countries like Korea, China, or even some countries in the Middle East where the salaries are a lot higher and the employer is willing to pay some of your expenses. So again, I just want to mention that I went over the averages in this video. Like I've already mentioned, it's going to vary depending on your lifestyle. So you definitely take that into consideration. And when you're thinking about moving to Europe, I found that this area, if we kind of look at the equivalent areas down in Spain, you're going to be making about the same income, and price is going to be about the same. So it's really dependent on your personality and where you want to move. And it's also dependent on your level of education. Sometimes it's hard to teach ESL English in Spain if you, one, don't have a degree, and other factors may get in your way. So Poland is definitely a good alternative. In addition, because Poland's central location, it makes it easy to travel all around Europe. And again, here you can make a really decent income. So anyways, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and also smash that notification button. We are here every Friday uploading new content. Anyways, can't wait to see you next week.